Welcome to the valedictory session of the two-day National Conference on Translational Practices in Administration, Media and Literature. After a keynote session, 2 plenary sessions, 4 paper presentation sessions, we stand here now at the end of the conference, but hopefully the beginning of a surge of translational activity in the minds of the youth present in the auditorium. We have with us today the chief guest, Dr. Rajarshi Singh, Director, PAL Network, Guest of Honor, Shri Vilas Chaudhari, Project Coordinator, Goa Science Center and Planetarium, Special Invitee, Shri Yatish Dempo, Trustee, Dempo Charities Trust, Shri Anil Sawant, Deputy Director, Directorate of Official Language, Principal of DCT's Dhempe College of Arts and Science, Professor Vrinda Borker, Ms. Clarinda Dias, in charge Department of English, Dempe College, and the co-convener of the conference. We also acknowledge the presence of the keynote speaker in the audience, Professor Uday Singh. We are also very glad to have Dr. Swati Pawar with us, Vice Principal, Dempe College of Arts and Science. With this, I request Ma'am Clarinda and Ms. Sneha to kindly escort the dignitaries to the dais. Thank you. May I now request Madam Principal, Professor Vrinda Borker, to kindly welcome the gathering.
Good afternoon all. After 2 days deliberations and discussions, I welcome you for this valedictory function, and definitely not the valedictory as far as the topic is concerned. It is the starting of the topic or the mission what they are on our national translation, and many more invitees here whom we have brought today here. And I would say that this is the start, and we have to start looking at the opportunities, careers, making the students aware of this career. And so I welcome you all for this valedictory function of this 2 days national conference. I take pleasure in welcoming Dr. Rajarshi Singh, as well as Chaudhari, who is the Goa Science Center's in charge here. Our own trustee, Mr. Yatish Dempo, Mr. Sawant, who has been, I would say, the main person who was with us for many more sittings earlier before we had this workshop. I welcome you for this successful valedictory function. Also Sneha, Sabnis, and the in charge of our English department, Mrs. Clarinda Dias. Also I take pleasure in welcoming all the staff and students, invitees, speakers for this last session of this 2-day national conference. I would little add that again I would say that the conference ends and our thinking starts or working starts. That should be the motto, and then only we can say that this conference was a successful one. Success does not mean just completion of the event, but what was the take-home message for all of you? Whether you were ignited with one new idea, whether you will pass this idea to your fellow colleagues and your students, this is what is expected from this conference. Welcome once again, and thank you.
देव बरे करू मॅडम. हांव मागतां राजभाषा संचालनालयाचे उपसंचालक श्री अनिल सावंत हांचे लागीं की तांणी आयच्या मानेस्तांची वळख करून दिवची.
नमस्कार. राजभाषा संचालनालय आणि इंग्लिश विभाग डेम्पो महाविद्यालय तांचो इंग्लिश विभाग आणि हांच्या जोड पालवान काल आणि आयज अशें आमी ट्रान्सलेशनाचेर आमी ही राष्ट्रीय परिशद घडोवन हाडली, आणि ती घडोवन हाडपा खातीर आमकां सगळ्या कॉलेजींनी सपोर्ट केलो आपल्या भुरग्यांक धाडून. आणि मॅडमीन म्हटलां तशें की आयज जरी आमचो हांगा समारोप सुवाळो जाता तरी आमी एक ट्रान्सलेशनाची बेज घेवन आमी आतां फुडें सरता आनी ताच्या खातीर त्या सगळ्या कॉलेजींतल्यान जितली भुरगीं आयल्या तांकां आनी तांचे शिक्षक तांकां हांव पयलीं येवकार दिता. आयच्या ह्या समारोप सुवाळ्याक आमचे मदीं उपस्थित आसात चीफ गेस्ट जाचें बी उलोवप सगळ्यांक आयकुपाचें आसा ते डॉक्टर राजर्षी सिंग, डायरेक्टर ऑफ प्रोग्राम्स PL नेटवर्क दिल्ली. तांचें कारकीर्द आनी तांचें करियर जर पळयलें जाल्यार आमकां दिसता की ह्या सेशनान तांचें आनी एक खरें म्हणल्यार तेंचे पेपर रिडर तांकां तांचे कडसून आमकां चड तांचें आमी आयकुपाक आमी सोदता पूण वेळेचें भान दवरून आमकां समारोप सुवाळ्याक तांचें आमी उलोवप दवरलां. तांचें शिक्षण विज्ञान शाखेंतल्यान जालां. ते बॅचलर ऑफ फिजिक्स टक्सान हांगाचे युनिव्हर्सिटी ऑफ आर्जिना हांगा जालां. ते MSc इन कम्प्युटेशनल मेकॅनिक्स अँड PhD इन कम्प्युटेशनल मेकॅनिक्स फ्रॉम द कार्नेगी मेलन युनिव्हर्सिटी पिट्सबर्ग. तांचें कार्य पळयलें जाल्यार अशें दिसता की तांच्या कडसून खरीच प्रेरणा घेवपाक जाय. तांच्यांनी चिल्ड्रन फावंडेशनल लर्निंग जे एशिया, आफ्रिका, लॅटिन अमेरिका हांगाच्या 15 देशांनी ताचें काम चलता, जाचें वर्सुकी बजेट आसा $2 मिलियन. ताणें आयज मेरेन मल्टी कंट्री प्रोजेक्ट्स मॅनेजरांक आयडिएशन, डिझायन अँड रिसर्च मॅनेजमेंट काम केलां. इंटरनॅशनल कॉमन असेसमेंट ऑफ द न्युमरसी अँड अर्ली लँग्वेज लिटरसी अँड न्युमरसी असेसमेंट अक्रॉस 15 कंट्रीज. तशेंच माय विलेज प्रोजेक्ट इम्प्लिमेंटेड in various villages in the countries such as Nepal, Tanzania, Kenya. आणि त्याच वांगडा तांणी टेक्निकल कन्सल्टंट, टेक्निकल हेड आणि सिनियर कन्सल्टंट ही पदां सांबाळ्यात. He has identified content usage pattern and learning behaviorness of 26,000 children across Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Maharashtra. He has monitored individual level data of 15,000 children attending the TARL learning campus across 13 Indian states. SMS Story Project, the English teaching via SMS in Rajasthan. He worked as a senior business analyst for the Riddhi Management Services, team leader of the business bureau. ताणे आयज मेरेन स्वता वा ताचे जोड पालवान ताणें 8 पुस्तकां प्रकाशीत केल्यात. चिल्ड्रन डायनॅमिक्स, सिव्हिल सोसायटी अँड लर्निंग ह्या विशयाचेर ही पुस्तकां आसात. तशेंच डेमोक्रेटायझेशन ऑफ नॉलेज, लँग्वेज लर्निंग, ट्रेंड्स इन लिंग्विस्टिक्स ह्या विशयाचेर तांचे लेख आसात. ताणें आयज मेरेन स्कॉटलँड, युनायटेड किंगडम, USA ह्या देशांनी आपले पेपर रीड केल्ले आसा, सादर केल्ले आसात. तशेंच गुरगांव आणि कलकत्ता शारांनी वेगवेगळ्या परिशदेन तांच्यांनी आपले पेपर सादर केल्यात. तांकां ह्या तांच्या सगळ्या कार्या खातीर अवॉर्ड्सूय मेळ्ळ्यात. तांकां स्कॉलरशिपूय घेतले. ते ग्रॅज्युएट स्टडीज इन स्कॉलरशीप फ्रॉम द कार्नेगी मेलन युनिव्हर्सिटी. त्याच वांगडा जॉर्ज ग्रेगसन स्कॉलरशीप ऑफ युनिव्हर्सिटी इन आरिझोना. ते अशे व्यक्तिमत्व आसा आनी ते आमचे मदीं उपस्थित आसा. त्या खातीर आमकां खूब खोस भोगता. हांव तांकां ह्या 2 दिसाच्या राष्ट्रीय परिशदेचे समारोप सुवाळ्याक खास प्रवक्ते म्हणून हांव राजभाशा संचालनालय आणि डेम्पो महाविद्यालय हांचे वतीन येवकार दिता. आमचे वतीन आमच्या वांगडा ह्या समारोप सुवाळ्याक आमकां एक स्पेशल इन्वायटी आसा. ते म्हळ्यार ह्या संस्थेचे ट्रस्टी यतीश डेम्पो, ट्रस्टी डेम्पो चॅरिटीज ट्रस्ट, डायरेक्टरेट डेम्पो शिप बिल्डिंग अँड इंजिनियरिंग प्रायव्हेट लिमिटेड. डेम्पो हांचें नांव सगळ्यांक गोंयांत कोणाक खबर ना अशें ना. ते आमी ल्हानपणा पासून तेचें नांव आयकता. तेंचे सगळे तेंचे शिक्षणीक संस्था आसूं जावं आनी हेर खंयच्या संस्थांनी डेम्पो परिवाराच्या नांवानूच सगळे तांच्यांनी मदत केल्ली आसा आनी त्याच पद्दतीन आयज ह्या तांच्याच परिवारांतल्यान हातून आमकां हें करून घेता ते आमकां मानाचें अशें आमी म्हणटा. The name of the Dempo has been associated with philanthropy for many centuries. Their fame has extended beyond the boundaries of the Goa and has spread all over India. They have supported individuals and institutions associated with the arts and culture, sports, and especially the education. In more recent times, this philanthropic attitude saw the foundation of the Dempo Charities Trust. The trust manages the 4 educational institutions in Goa. They are Dempo College of Arts and Science, established in 1962 and located at Miramar. Srinivas Sinai Dempo College of Commerce and Economics, established in 1966 and located at Altino. Vasantrao Dempo Higher Secondary School of Arts Science, established in 1975 at Miramar. Vaikuntrao Sinai Dempo Higher Secondary School of Commerce, established in 1975. To present this esteemed trust, we have with us Shri Yatish Dempo. हांव तांची बी येवकार दिता. मागीर आमच्या मदीं उपस्थित आसात गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर श्री विलास चौधरी, इज अ प्रोजेक्ट कोऑर्डिनेटर गोवा सायन्स सेंटर एंड प्लॅनेटोरियम. हाच्यान पयलीं ते एज्युकेशन ऑफिसर एट रमन सायन्स सेंटर नागपूर हांगा कार्यरत आसले. हांव तांकांय बी येवकार दिता. आमच्या मदीं उपस्थित आसात डेम्पो महाविद्यालयाची प्राचार्य वृंदा बोरकार, तशेंच आमचे कडेन उपस्थित इंग्लिश विभागाची क्लारिंडा डायस, तशेंच आमच्या राजभाषा संचालनाचे कनिष्ठ भाषांतरकार स्नेहा, आणि हांगा उपस्थित सगळ्यांक हांव येवकारता. सगळ्यांक देव बरें करूं.
Thank you, sir. To symbolically mark this welcome, I would now like to request Shri Sebi Fernandez, Senior Translator at the Directorate of Official Language and Logistic Head of the conference, to present a welcome token to our chief guest, Dr. Rajarshi Singh. May I request Dr. Svetlana Fernandez, Assistant Professor in English, Dhempe College, and Logistic Heads of the conference, to present a welcome token to the guest of honor, Shri Vilas Chaudhari. May I again request Shri Sebi Fernandez to present a welcome token to our special guest, Shri Yatish Dempo. Thank you. As one of the organizing secretaries of the conference, I take this opportunity now to present a brief report of the 2-day conference. The 2-day National Conference on Translational Practices and in Administration, Media and Literature was organized by the Directorate of Official Language, Government of Goa, in collaboration with the Department of English, DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Panji, Goa, at the Goa Science Center and Planetarium on 16th and 17th of January 2024. The conference aimed at dealing with various challenges and technological advancement in the field of translation and allied areas. The chief guest and the keynote speaker for the inaugural session was Professor Uday Narayan Singh, eminent linguist and translation theoretician. The guest of honor for this inaugural ceremony was Mr. Srinivas Dempo, Chairman, Dempo Charities Trust. The gathering was welcomed by Mr. Raju Gaus, Director of Official Language. This was followed by introduction to the conference by Mr. Anil Sawant, Deputy Director. The dignitaries were then introduced to the gathering by Professor Vrinda Borker. Professor Borker elaborately spoke about the dignitaries and ended her introduction with gratitude to each of them. The vote of thanks for the ceremony was proposed by Ms. Clarinda Dias, in charge Department of English. Ms. Rochelle Fernandez and Mr. Gaurang Bhandye were the compares for this session. The second session for the day was a plenary session which consisted of Professor Kiran Budkule as the moderator and Dr. Svetlana Fernandez, Mr. Gaurang Bhandye, Mr. Sebi Fernandez, Ms. Salima Kothare, and Dr. Palia Pandit as the panelists. The session concluded with a question and answer session and ended with vote of thanks and presentation of mementos to the dignitaries. Ms. Rachi Desai compared this session. The first session of paper presentations commenced post-lunch. The session was titled Translation in Literature, Theory and Praxis. Ms. Prashanti Tarpankar chaired this session. Dr. Glenis Mendonça presented her paper titled Theories of Translation Studies, Historical Trends and Perspectives. and presented a detailed history of translational practices from the inception of the concept. Ms. Salima Kotare spoke on translating drama, some insights into theory and praxis, in which she explored the theoretic and practical aspects of translating dramatic works from one language to another with focus on the challenges. Ms. Rama Murkunde presented a paper on कोकणीतल्यान अणकारित कथानात्मक साहित्य भास विज्ञानाच्या संदर्भात अभ्यास, the linguistic challenges of translating terms and how cultural differences as well as the lack of awareness in understanding nuances in Kokni language serve as challenges to a translator. Ms. Rochelle Fernandez was the final paper presenter for the session, and she presented a paper titled Bridging Historical Narratives, the Critical Role of Translation in Unraveling Portuguese Goan History. Ms. Fernandez spoke about Kokni archives and presented a glimpse of her research derived from the same. Dr. Svetlana Fernandez was the compere for this session. The second session of paper presentations was titled Deliberations in Technical Translation. Dr. Narayan Desai chaired this session. Mr. S. Winston Cruz presented a paper on knowledge text and AI-powered machine translation. Mr. Cruz brought to the attention of the audience the role of technological advancements such as AI, GPT, government agencies, and Indian languages. Mr. Biswadeep Gogoi spoke about localization and its impact on language and culture. He provided a detailed glimpse of behind the scenes of localization and how the process is undertaken for various digital applications. Mr. Barkisha Soprekar provided perspectives on Tantrik Ankar, Garas, Ahwana, and Upay. He highlighted the need, challenges, and solutions of technical translations, especially for the questions of competitive exams. Ms. Sneha Sabnis presented a paper titled Kaida Sambandhi Ankar, Tantrik Marachi Garas, and Fudar. She spoke about the lack of resources required for translation of legal texts and stressed upon the knowledge of law and legalities being essential for legal translation, along with proficiency in language and skill to translate. Ms. Shweta Matonkar compared for this session. The third session of paper presentation commenced on day 2, that is 17 January 2024. The title of the session was Significance of Terminology Creation in Translation, which was chaired by Dr. Bhushan Bhave. Ms. Suchita Singh and Professor Udayanarayan Singh presented a paper on the crucial role of translation in a multicultural space and the place of dictionaries in the scheme, and provided the audience with their experiences in working with various dictionaries. They also enlightened the audience with the existence of a unique dictionary, Sniglet, which showcases words leading to the creation of dictionaries. Dr. Aditi Budkule presented her paper titled Terminology in the Context of Contemporary Translation and highlighted that terminology creation is not the end goal, but a preliminary building block for glossary. The session ended with Dr. Palia Pandit's paper titled Creating Terminology, Literary Terminology in Kokni, Process, Methods, and Challenges. She shed light on the ongoing project of the Directorate of Official Language in Kokni Literary Terminology Creation and provided examples from Kokni glossaries. Mr. Akbar Abli Sheikh compared for the session. The last session of paper presentation, session 4, was titled Translational Interventions in Media and was chaired by Mr. Prakash W. Kamath. During this session, Dr. Tanvi Borker presented a paper on strategies and challenges of radio news translation, a case study of Kokni news at All India Radio. Dr. Tanvi spoke elaborately about the detailed process of translation in radio industry and especially at the All India Radio, Panji. Dr. Jaiprabhu Kamre was the second speaker for this session. He spoke about Marathi Madhyamansati Bhashantar Swarup ani Samasya and portrayed an in-depth analysis of the mistranslation that occurs in Marathi newspapers. The final paper presenter for this session was Mr. Sushant Naik. He presented a paper titled Kokani Ankaratli Avana ani Adkari, Kokani Prasar Madhyamacha Sandarbha. Mr. Naik provided insightful takes on the same and spoke about cultural and geographical references and context as essential factor for extricating word accuracy in translation. The final session for the conference was post-lunch, which was the special lecture on subtitling, dubbing, and localization as a career. The resource persons for this were Mr. Winston Cruz and Mr. Biswadeep Gogoi, and the session was moderated by Mr. Sebi Fernandez. Mr. Cruz highlighted the difference between dubbing and subtitling with interesting examples, and the session ended with Mr. Gogoi's presentation on the financial implications of taking up translation as a career. Thank you. we now move on to a very important segment of any valedictory ceremony. अभिप्राय दिवप हो खंयच्याय समारोप सुवाळ्याचो एक महत्वाचो भाग जावन आसता. ते खातीर हांव मागतां आकाश भोसले जे विद्या प्रबोधिनीन असिस्टंट प्रोफेसर म्हणून शिकयतात तांचे लागीं की तांणी हांगा येवन फीडबॅक दिवचो ह्या 2 दिसांच्या राष्ट्रीय परिसंवादा बद्दल. तुमकां कितें दिसलें हो परिसंवाद अटेंड करून?
Good afternoon, all the dignitaries present here and the audience, all the members in the audience. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude for this insightful 2-day conference on translational practices organized by the Directorate of Official Language in collaboration with Dhempe College of Arts and Science. If I had to give my feedback, I would say I loved it. It was a really, really good conference. I think so. All of the speakers, moderators, paper presenters were, the presentations given out by them were really, really insightful, especially for a novice like me who doesn't have a lot of experience in translation. After this conference, I would feel like the water is warm enough for me to just, put my pinky in there and maybe take translation for a while. Most of these, as I reflect on these 2 days of talks and sessions that we had, this quote comes to mind from this IBM presentation that happened, I don't know, in the 90s or something, which basically talks about, the quote goes, a computer can never be held accountable, so do not let computers make management decisions. I feel like that thing could be extrapolated to all of the GPTs and translation questions and ideas and problems that we are facing today. So that's something that I could take away from this conference. Other than that, I would like to thank Ms. Palia for giving me this opportunity to present my feedback on the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. I would like to request any other student who is present over here in the audience, if you would like to give a feedback about the conference, it will really be very, very valuable to us. So I throw the floor open for a feedback from a student. You can even give it in Kokni. If not a student, then any other member of the audience could come forth and maybe very briefly, within a minute, give the feedback for the conference. Yes, Rama? Yes. We have giving us feedback Ms. Rama Murkunde from Goa University.
माझे वयले सगळ्या मानेस्तांक तशेंच सभाघरांतल्या मानेस्तांक आनी सगळ्यांक नमस्कार. 2 दिसांची ही राष्ट्रीय परिशद जी घडोवन हाडल्या ताज्या बद्दल जी प्रतिक्रिया आसा ती खूब हांव म्हणटलें एक तरेची आमकां जागयल्लें आसा. एक जागोवपा खातीर दिस इज अ वेकअप कॉल फॉर कोंकणी. फक्त कोंकणी आवडटा, कोंकणीचेर मोग करता इतलें म्हणून जायना. यू रियली नीड टू गेट इन द फील्ड अँड स्टार्ट वर्किंग. सो दिस इज अ वेकअप कॉल असो म्हाका दिसलो आमकां सगळ्या कोंकणी मोग्यां खातीर. तुमी खंयच्याय फिल्डांतली जरी असली तरी जे प्रपत्र मांडपी आशिल्ले तांणी अभ्यासपूर्ण प्रपत्रां मांडिल्लीं आसा. एक दुसरें जे डिस्कशन्स जी जालीं तातूंत भितर सद्या स्थितीत कोंकणीचे म्हणजे हेर भासांनी कितें चल्लां तें कळटा. वी केम टू नो अबाउट द सिनारियो इन अदर लँग्वेजीस फ्रॉम द डिस्कशन्स that have taken place and how we can apply it to Konkani and where are the areas we can explore because there is a lot that needs to be done. So ह्या खातीर हांव म्हणटलें की ही परिशद जी आसा ती खूब यशस्वी आसा आनी प्रत्यक्ष रुपान यशस्वी करपाचें काम तांचें न्ही आमच्या सगळ्यांचें आसा. सो ही परिशद घडोवन हाडपा खातीर धेंपे महाविद्यालय तशेंच राजभास संचालनालय दोगांकूय आमी दिनवास दितात. आनी म्हाका हांगा उलोवपाची संद दिल्ल्या खातीर देव बरें करूं.
Dev Bare Kuru Ramabai. I also hope that all the members of the audience have filled the feedback form. The feedback form has been distributed in the form of a QR code and a link. So kindly fill the feedback form because the Directorate as well as our college looks forward to valuable inputs with regards to the conference. May I now request the special invitee for this session, Shri Yatish Dempo, to kindly address the gathering.
Respected chief guest of today's function, Mr. Rajarshi Singh, his father, respected Mr. Uday Narayan Singh, our other guests, Shri Vilas Chaudhari, respected principal, and our Anil Sawant sir, and Vrinda Borker, and others on the dais, and of the distinguished guests on and off the dais. I'd like to thank the principal and the organizers of this two-day national conference on translational practices in administration, media and literature. Translation has been considered as a lingua franca of the 21st century. It has become a via media through which literally scientific, political and cultural dialogues are transmitted from one part of the world to another. Translation practice cannot be looked at as an allied or a supplementary activity anymore. It is a mainstream medium of knowledge and value dissemination, distribution and perception. I congratulate the delegates and participants of this two-day conference and wish them success in the field that they have chosen. I request the delegates to give their best in the deliberations that follow in this conference in the next 2 days. This is a golden opportunity for you and all present here. Coming back to our college's role in this field, affiliated to the Goa University, your institution established in 1962 has distinction of being the premier institute of higher learning in the state in the aftermath of Goa liberation from Portuguese rule. It has been accredited with A grade by NAC in the 4th cycle of accreditation. Apart from its commitment to academic excellence, the college is keenly interested in language development. Its faculty members from the Department of Indian Languages, English, Computer Science, Chemistry and Botany have been involved in various national and state projects in linguistics and translation. Today, I would like to thank two personalities representing two very important institutions associated with this conference. First and foremost, Dr. Uday Narayan Singh and his son, Dr. Rajarshi Singh, who have been the keynote speakers for our conference. Thank you, sir, for specially coming down from all the way from Delhi. I know you're the Dean of Invitee Business School, and it's a very big, very busy schedule. In spite of that, you have come here for 2 days and enlightened our students of the Dempo colleges. And your son, Rajarshi, will be the keynote speaker now at the valedictory function. Also, I would like to thank another very important organization associated with this conference, and that is the Department of Official Languages. Dr. Anil Sawant is representing. Thank you, Sawant sir, for enlightening us with your knowledge and your experience. Our children, our students have learned a lot in the last 2 days about what the speeches that you have given. I also call upon the participants to present world-class research papers and take away the best out of this conference and contribute to the development of vernacular and official language in the state in the field of legal and administration. I also congratulate our principal, Mrs. Vrinda Borker, for organizing this world-class conference seminar on peace-loving state of Goa, giving an opportunity to the students to present their research papers and deliberate on the topic of translational practices in administration, media and literature. With these few words, I end my short speech with my good wishes to all of you here present for last 2 days and luck and success for all the hard work that you have put in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful remarks. May I now request the guest of honor of the ceremony, Shri Vilas Chaudhari, to kindly address the gathering.
Chief guest of this today's function, valedictory function, that is Dr. Rajarshi Singh and all other dignitaries in the dais, dignitaries of the dais and all the students and other participants. I first am thankful to the Dempe College and Directorate of Official Language for organizing this 2 days workshop at Goa Science Center, and I must congratulate both the organizers, that is Directorate of Official Language and Dempe College of Arts and Science for having organized this national conference on translational practices in administration, media, and literature. I will not speak much because this is valedictory function, and we are also waiting for the words from Rajarshi Singh also. So I am not a person to speak on this because I am not a person from this field. So I just hope that this conference must have been very useful for all the stakeholders, all the students, and all the researchers. And I hope it will benefit you a lot. And I. I wish all the very best to all the participants in future also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable comments. May I now request the chief guest of the valedictory ceremony, Dr. Rajarshi Singh, Director of Programs, PAL Network, to deliver his address. I also request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly take their seats in the audience, as this presentation will have a slide presentation.
Thank you very much for being seated and not running out the door. I know we've had a very good lunch, a very good tea, and our minds were, bedazzled by Saraswati and Lakshmi and, so many vahanas. And may I request that everybody do some physical activity now. So what I'll do along with you is, we're going to learn an African song. I spent about 4 years working in Africa. It's the only song I learned, okay? And that's the only song I'm going to teach you. For that, we need to stand up. Please, may I request everybody to stand up. Okay, now, this is what I do with my children in the field, okay? And my children are not obedient at all. So you don't have to be obedient. But know that your neighbor is watching you. This is a clear image. Okay? So, when I say si mama, that means stand. When I say ka, that means sit. When I say si mama, stand. And when I say ruka ruka, run on the spot. Okay? We are learning translation, no? In Hindi, ruka ruka, rok. Okay, so si mama ka, si mama ka, si mama ka, ruka ruka, si mama ka. Thank you very much. Wonderful to be here, and thank you, Directorate of Official Languages, for giving us the opportunity to talk about language translation and its role in the development field. Also, DCT's Dhempe College of Arts and Science. I think the group has done wonderful work for not just building of Goa, but also the minds in Goa. Okay? So what we'll do right now is, we talked about the top of the learning pyramid. What I mean by that is, हम सब बात कर रहे थे कि artificial intelligence की बात, right? Higher education की बात, all that in translation. अब थोड़ा pyramid को उल्टा कर देते हैं. Let's talk about bottom of the pyramid. As you can see, I have a picture of a child. How old do you think this child is? Just take a guess. You don't have to be right. 7. Any other number? 6. 12. Okay. So average 10 years old. What are we doing with this child? Essentially, we developed a tool where we take across 15 countries and we look at how well this child is able to read. And similarly, we have done assessments of children across 15 countries, reaching about 6 million children or so total. 50% of children across rural Africa, rural India, rural Latin America cannot read a single sentence in the tongue of official instruction in the school. We are talking about translation. First is translation of ideas onto the paper. So today, we are going to talk a little bit about the experiences of this child. And just for that, We know that schoolrooms are windows of imaginations and into a better world, right? There is I think, story in which we see that no matter how poor a person is in Africa or in India, sometimes they'll always have books and televisions. Why? Because that's a window to the world. Similarly, schoolrooms are also like that. But what if every day you are seeing something like that in raid? Every single day, आप जा रहे हो क्लासरूम में, आप देख रहे हो वो क्या है, क्या लिखा है वहाँ पे? Anybody want to read it out? I've given the English also. ठीक है? It says Konnichiwa Goa. So hello Goa. Totemo atatakai go aisatsu desu. It's a wonderful day. Essentially, it's that simple. The meaning is that simple. Hello Goa, it's a wonderful warm day. But it's in a language I don't understand, and it's in a language I cannot read. So that's a challenge that 50% of, say, class 5 children in India are facing every single day. And then we ask, अरे भाई इंडिया में तो ड्रॉप आउट काहे होते हैं भाई, क्लास में जा रहा है, बैठ रहा है 5 घंटा, समझ में कुछ आ नहीं रहा है, टीचर केयर नहीं करते हैं, कुछ कुछ करते हैं, कुछ कुछ नहीं करते हैं, हमारे आपके टीचर्स करते हैं, कुछ कुछ नहीं करते हैं, ठीक है? तो they will drop out or they will not learn. So we do the assessment and we are trying to figure out how to actually get them interested in learning. Okay? So the reason why we do that is because it's a huge global problem. And how big of a problem is it? In 2017, UNICEF, actually UNESCO, did a collation of data across the entire world. They saw that 617 million children did not know how to read, so did not have foundational skills in basic literacy and numeracy. Okay? Meaning, all those years that those children were going to schools, what were they doing? Not learning formal education, right? They were learning other stuff, like there's peer learning, there's probably some amount of problem solving, there's social skills, but the basics of reading, writing and doing math, they weren't. So, essentially, time in school was not translating into commensurate learning gains. Okay? Now, picture in Goa is slightly different. Why? Because historically, Goa and leaders in Goa have invested a lot in literature, in literacy, in developing foundational skills, as well as in human development. So that's why Goa is doing good. Kerala is also doing very good. Okay? It's a different matter when it comes to, say, higher education. Some other states may be doing better. But in this case, we are doing very well. Okay? But that also gives us an opportunity. What is that opportunity? I'll slowly share with you. And the opportunity essentially is that we have to understand that it's not a lack of financial resources that actually differentiates performance. There's a lot of financial resources that goes into developing schooling curriculums, textbooks, pedagogies, teacher training. It's a whole lot of money, right? When we talk about 4% of GDP in developed or developing countries, it's a lot of money. Okay, so it's not just a matter of money. It may be in a place like Mozambique. It is not in other places. Okay, so what can we do actually to improve the situation? And especially given that in learning situations that we have faced in the past 3 years, there are uncertainty that we see all the time. For example, in COVID, India had one of the longest classroom closures, right? Unimaginable. Like overnight, 2 billion children were out of school. Overnight, okay? Not just in India, all over. And there was actually a counter that was ticking, like how many children are out of school. And it went up very high. So India was also that. And we see that in the results of ASAR. ASAR India is a survey that happens every year. It has happened since 2005, where across rural districts, Pratham does a survey of children's basic reading and math. In that we've seen before COVID, after COVID, there was a significant drop. And we see that reflected in some other countries also. In a few countries, we don't see that. So in technical parlance, if we look at all countries, these would be cases of positive deviance. That is, Kenya is an example. What did they do that their children did not lose so much learning despite school closures? One, the schools did not close for so long. Okay, it was limited, it was constrained. Two, they actually went out with local radio jockeys, local education officers, going around interacting with households, children, and giving audiovisual programs in those languages, in those communities. So the advantage of using local radio was कि आपके शहर में जो कहानी चलता है वो आपको सुनाया जा रहा है. So you connect with it better. Alright? If it is a story that is far removed from your reality, it won't connect with you, right? Language is supposed to connect with you. So these stories were connecting with the children, and children are very smart consumers. Huh? If you are boring them, they say, "Bhai, chalo, kalli valli, tata." Okay? So they want interesting stuff. So their experiment of localized, a different kind of localization probably, or similar, I don't know, was actually improving the learning condition in Kenya, and we see that in results. So in many other places, there is a drop between 2019 and 2022 assessment of basic literacy. We don't see that happening in Kenya. Okay? In fact, what we see as the age increases, the performance, the difference in performance between 2019 and 2022 is increasing. So children 3 years ago who were 10 years old and now 13 years old did not actually lose so much. They got a lot in those COVID years because of these small additions that they've done. So, what is the lesson that we can learn? First is, all of you are educated. Tomorrow, your nephews, nieces will have no problem not learning how to read, so it doesn't affect you in any which way. But I think we were talking about nation building. So what is the cost of not learning? Cost of learning is how much fees you pay. But what is the cost of not learning? At a very big scale, we see that about 6.5 trillion, okay, was spent globally on education, but only 0.5 came to low-income countries. That's the cost. But when a child does not know how to read, his entire lifetime earnings is reduced so much. So the cost is huge. Okay? And this is a small map. If this is available, I would request you to study where the costs are seen from the individual's points of view, where we see gains in earnings, we see improved health, which means less expenditure in health. We see families where it's reduced out-of-pocket health expenditure, better jobs because bigger proportion of the families are able to earn because all of them know how to read and study and participate, and there's less dependency on the government. So the private sector pays you better. Socio-cultural, there's more cohesion, there's less violence, there's cultural integration and more productivity. So once there is all this kind of productivity, you can then start spending your time on entrepreneurship. You can start spending time on tinkering and doing little innovations that will become big companies. Right? There is a reason why such big companies, so many of them are from the developed world, because they get time to play around, to tinker. For us, we are running behind roti, kapra, makan, right? While they are thinking about Mars. So we have to create a situation where we can also think about how to put people on Mars. Okay. Last is government. Government also gets more tax because more people are earning better and they get more tax. Government has to spend less on education because then once people can afford more, they're going to go into private sector and things like that. So these are the positives of doing better in foundational literacy numeracy. The experiment we had done at PAL Network was asking ourselves a question which I think would be relevant for Konkani and for Goa also, is what can we do with available indigenous resources to help our children read and enjoy what they read. Okay? Let's say there is a story in some rural place in Tanzania, which is very interesting to those village children. We said, can we capture that story and can we port it for all other children in the world? Okay. So we went out to 8 different countries and we said, let's target languages that are not so powerful. So indigenous languages that are a bit removed from the market sentiments. So it could be Sindhi, it could be, tribal languages in India. Okay, so we collected data and we collected stories, poems, songs, riddles, chutkule, all that kind of things in these languages, and we made books. And what we saw is when we use these books in the classrooms, children are actually able to learn better. So in the context of translation, what we were doing is we were translating not only language, but we were also translating cultures across the world, which I think is very useful for children to actually participate in education, which is a gateway and window to the global world. Okay. So, as you can see, there are some do's and don'ts that we had tried. We don't have time to get into that, but quickly, an overview of why I think this approach of ours actually worked is while we were developing the program, we did not just look at the program from the point of view of an intervention alone. We took it as a systemic view, which means there is a transaction across actors who are producers of content, who are consumers of content, and translators of content in between. So who are those? Producers could be textbook makers, translators are teachers in between, and consumers are children. So we tried to garner those relationships to see if that relationship is successful. Now, in each step of that relationship, somebody has to actually gain and nobody has to lose. So that is another thing that we need to take care of. Okay, nobody in that chain, in the systemic chain, has to lose. Everybody has to gain. So how do we do that? So we did that by actually encouraging local people to tell their own stories. They wanted to really tell the stories that they had to say. So they got a voice, they got a platform, and they told the stories, and we used that in the support of children's basic learning. Okay. So a systemic framework is something that we did not create. It has been tried and tested. It was tested in Oxford, Cambridge, in Harvard, and we just adapted it for our own convenience. Okay. It was developed by Rice, and the systemic framework, again, as I said, it looks at principle, the relationship, and the agent, and it looks at the systemic view. Okay. Thank you. And the other advantage is when we were collecting the stories, who did we go to? We went to people associated with children. Who are they? Grandparents, parents, brothers, sisters. We must have gone people like you too as well, right? We have taken stories from other students in the communities. Like, let's say somebody spoke a very, somebody passed out of some rural tribe in Mexico. There was one guy who was studying in some college, right? So we went to them and we tell, what are the stories you learned? So we involved them in children's education. And that really helped us actually get the community involved in children's learning, and that is super, super useful for us. And we see that in your context, that the community is involved in children's learning, okay? And that's something that really helps promote literacy and numeracy. Lastly, we want to just look at some lessons learned. One is stories are a very good form of transmission of local knowledge. Right? So elders and community members can play a key role in this. Tell this. There's a collection compendium of stories in Bengali called Takmar Juli. Everybody has probably read that or heard from it and learned from it. Okay, so I'm sure similar things are also available in major languages. But if you could have more of that, not just one Takuma, but like 10 of them, then it would give children more access to interesting stories. Next is challenges of translation. We have seen throughout these 2 days that it is difficult to translate. So for children, we need to be a bit more careful. Okay, we need to be sensitive about how you translate and if the content is likable for children. So that little bit of flair of being curious should also be there in the translations. 2, it is important to have training for those who are actually working with children. You cannot expect that without training in indigenous content creation or indigenous content delivery, it will succeed in the classroom. There has to be training and retraining. Very important. Last is agency, meaning everybody should be empowered to actually participate in this process, which is how do we use evidence to actually help children learn better. So that's what we see, and that's what we have learned. 4 lessons that we think that will help children learn better through indigenous content. And I think I'm at the end of my time. Thank you very much for your patience, and wonderful to be here.
Thank you, sir, for that very interesting talk. Your emphasis on the role of children and their literacy vis-a-vis localization and translation. Your pan-global research in this area is quite inspiring and paves the way into new educational venture. Thank you very much. As a token of our gratitude and appreciation to the chief guest of today's function, Dr. Rajarshi Singh, I request Ma'am Principal to present a memento to our respected chief guest. मागता श्री अनिल सावंत हांचे लागीं गीत आनी श्री विलास चौधरी हांकां यादस्तीक भेटोवचे. May I request Ma'am Vrinda Dias to kindly present a memento to Shri Yatish Dempo. Thank you, everyone. We have now come to the final speech of the conference. May I now request Junior Translator, Directorate of Official Language, and the fellow organizing secretary of this conference, Ms. Sneha Sabnis, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and fellow translators, I am privileged to stand here today to express our collective gratitude. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for making this national conference on translational practices in administration, media, and literature a success. Your presence and active participation have enriched our discussions and strengthened the bond within our global translation community. परिषदेक तुम्ही 2 दीस हांगा हाजेरी लायली म्हणून तुमकां सगळ्यांक देव बरें करूं. तशेंच तुमच्या महाविद्यालयांचे प्राचार्य तशेंच विद्यापीठांचे मुखेली, कोंकणी विभागांचे मुखेली, इंग्लीश विभागांचे मुखेली तशेंच हेर भाशांचे जे विभाग मुखेली आसात तांचे सगळ्यांचे आमी उपकार मानतात. I thank the Honorable Chief Minister and Minister of Official Language, Dr. Pramod Sawant sir, and Secretary of Official Language, Sir Prit Gill, IAS, for being our patrons. Special thanks to all our distinguished guests for valedictory function, Dr. Rajarshi Singh, Vilas Chaudhary ji, Yatish Dempo. Also, guests for our inaugural ceremony, Professor Uday Narayan Singh ji, and guest of honor, Shri Dempo. I thank all our speakers and moderators, सत्रांचे सगळे अध्यक्ष, प्रोफेसर किरण बुडकुले, डॉक्टर नारायण देसाई, प्रोफेसर भूषण भावे, प्रकाश बाब कामत, प्रशांतीबाई तळपणकर. वेळाचे बंधन असून लेगीत तुम्ही सगळी सत्रा वेळ पाळून सोंपोवपाचो यत्न केलो आनी आमच्या ज्ञानाने तुम्ही भर घालपाचो यत्न केलो म्हणून तुमकां आमी दिनवासता. तसेच सगळे पेपर प्रेझेंटर्स पॅनलिस्ट तुमचे बी आम्ही उपकारी. सुचिता सिंग मॅडम, विन्स्टन बाब क्रूज, विश्वदीप गोगोय, सलीमा कोठारे, सेबी फर्नांडिस, डॉक्टर श्वेतलाना फर्नांडिस, गौरांग भांडिये, डॉक्टर पलिया पंडित, डॉक्टर ग्लेनिस मेंडोन्सा, डॉक्टर अदिती बुडकुले, डॉक्टर जयप्रभू कांबळी, डॉक्टर तन्वी बांबोळकर, सुशांत नाईक, रमा मुरकुंडे, बालकृष्ण चोपडेकर, रोशल फर्नांडिस, तुमचे सगळ्यांचे आम्ही उपकारी आसात. तुम्ही आमकां ट्रान्सलेशना बद्दल जावं ते लिटरेचर, मिडिया वा ऍडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, टेक्निकल ट्रान्सलेशन हाच्या बद्दल संशोधन करून आमच्या मुखार एक तुमचे विचार आमच्या मुखार मांडले म्हणून तुमकां आमी दिनवासतात. सगळ्या सत्रांचे जे सूत्रसंचालक असले तुमकांय बी आमी देव बरें करूं म्हणटा. सूत्रसंचालन करपी रोशल फर्नांडीस, गौरांग भांडिये, श्वेतलाना फर्नांडीस, राची देसाय, श्वेता मातोंडकर, अकबर अली शेख, राधिका नागवेकर हांकां हांव देव बरें करूं म्हणटा. गोवा सायन्स सेंटराचे प्रकल्प समन्वयक विलास चौधरीजी, तशेंच सायन्स सेंटराचे सगळे कर्मचारी, टेक्निकल स्टाफ, सगळे सेक्युरिटी गार्ड तुमचेय बी देव बरें करूं. परिशदेक प्रसिद्धी दिल्ले खातीर प्रिंट आनी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मिडिया तुमकां देव बरें करूं. परिशदेचे दस्तावेजीकरण करपी व्हिडिओ रेकॉर्डिंगाच्या माध्यमांतल्यान पलाशग्नी स्टुडिओज आनी सात्विक नायक तुमकां हांव दिनवासतां. डेकोरेशनाची जबाबदारी घेवपी धेंपे महाविद्यालयाचे विद्यार्थी अलिशा क्रूज आनी मौसमी बिस्वास हांकांय बी देव बरें करूं. सुरबूस जेवणाची व्यवस्था करपी सुभद्रा केटरर हांकांय बी हांचे आमी उपकारी आसात. तशेंच एड्स प्रिंटर आनी यादस्तीक भेट तयार करपी शंकर तुरी हांचेय बी उपकारी. आयोजनात आमकां हातभार लायिल्ले खातीर नमन सावंत आनी वल्लभ बर्वे हांकांय बी हांव दिनवासतां. I thank the members of the advisory board, Raju Gawat sir, Director of Official Language, Mr. Rajesh Patikar sir, Administrator, DCT's Educational Institution, Principal of DCT's Dhempe College, Professor Vrinda Borker, and Dr. Swati Pawar Madam, Vice Principal of DCT's Dhempe College. परिषदे खातीर धेंपे महाविद्यालयाच्या इंग्लिश विभागाच्या सगळ्या प्राध्यापकांनी आमकां खूब मोलादीक हातभार लायलो. क्लॅरिनेटाइज मॅडम, डॉक्टर पलिया पंडित, डॉक्टर स्वेतलाना फर्नांडीस, डॉक्टर अक्षता भट, राची देसाय, रोशेल फर्नांडीस, तशेंच प्राचार्य प्रोफेसर वृंदा बोरकर हांचो खूब आदार लाभलो. तुमचे आमी उपकारी आसात. आय थँक ऑल दी स्टुडंट व्हॉलंटियर्स ऑफ धेंपे कॉलेज फॉर देअर व्हॅल्युएबल कॉन्ट्रिब्युशन. तांकां लागून परिशद सुरळीतपणान आयोजित करप शक्य जालें. तुमचे उपकारी. परिषदेची संकल्पना मांडल्या उपरांत राजभास संचालनालयाचे कर्मचारी, भाषांतरकार परिषद यशस्वी करूंक कामाक लागले. सेबी फर्नांडीस, निकिता कुट्टीकर, महाजय गाड, शोभा फट्टे, पांडुरंग नायक, अनुसया गावस, फ्रनिता रिबेलो, योगेश देसाय, किशोर सावंत, मदन चोडणकर, इनासियो गोम्स तुमच्या आदाराक लागून परिषद आयोजित करप शक्य जालें. संचालक राजू गावस सर आणि उपसंचालक अनिल सावंत सर हांच्या मार्गदर्शनाखाला परिषदेचे आयोजन केले. तुमकां सगळ्यांक देव बरें करूं. Let's carry the inspiration gained here forward as we continue to bridge linguistic gaps and foster understanding through the power of translation. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Sneha. With this, we come to the end of the valedictory ceremony. Thank you one and all for being with us in these 2 days of deliberations. And I hope that we have been able to inspire you all to translate more and let our world grow together. Thank you very much. I request the dignitaries to kindly be on the dais. We will have a photograph now with the organizing committee and the speakers. So I request the members of the organizing committee to kindly come forth. I request the students also to be seated for a photograph, but after a little while. I request all the speakers and the members of the organizing committee to kindly come for a photograph. I also request Professor Uday Narayan Singh to come to the dais and join us for a photograph.